I think going into Invisible Touch, we did feel quite self-confident. You know, we felt we'd sort of really kind of broken ground, particularly live and everything, and suddenly we'd started to play big places and you know, university around the world. Probably finally reached a certain platform in America that we sort of hadn't quite made before, I don't felt. I don't know, we went in there with a lot of confidence. We seemed to have an incredible number of ideas, just improvised all the time, and endless songs kept falling out, you know.
The Genesis record before had this strong, dark mood. Invisible Touch seemed very energetic, maybe just more faster songs, by nature of a sort of collection of styles on the album, but it had a big energy.
They were long processes, you know. I mean, you could probably say about 3 or 4 months of writing, 5 days a week, until such point, you know, and the guys were always reluctant to sort of commit, and I was there with my list saying, well, if we put this bit with that bit, they said, wait, no, not yet. So, you know, like, I'm a bit more impetuous, and they were kind of, so we ended up with thousands of bits, you know, and some bits, probably great bits, went past us without noticing. The tapes are all there somewhere, and actually only the other day I found my notes, you know, for these albums, because I used to make, like, someone had to make notes on the cassettes and listen to tape 4, about 20 minutes in, there's a great bit. I was the keeper of the tapes, so it was kind of my responsibility to come. When they said, what was that bit we did 4 weeks ago? Ah, okay, you mean, you know, I had to come up with it, you know. It's my job. It
was a really enjoyable album to make, you know. I felt that we just managed to, I think there's a sort of confidence, a confidence allows you to write shorter pieces, in a way. In a strange way, for a certain someone like me, it's very much easier to write great long pieces, through all this wonderful stuff and funny chord changes and everything, and you almost don't have to sort of answer the question, well, is that bit good enough for it to be there? You just sort of do it and it happens. Whereas on these things, if you've only got 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes of the song, and you think you want it to be a good song, every bit's got to count, every aspect of it. And I think we got, you know, we did some good job on this.
I don't think you ever know when you finish an album what you've got. I mean, you always like it, but you don't plan what comes next, in a sense. This is a very easy album to make, Invisible Touch. I felt it flowed out very fast, and creatively it felt an exciting time. It came very easily. On this album, a lot of the stuff really just came around, you know, our pattern was quite, Phil would start with the drum machine, and they're always a little bit different, you know, and he'd bang it up, and off we'd go. You know, trying to play some chords, I'd bash around on the guitar, and Phil would start singing. And this little loop he started with kind of set the mood for something. Had a guitar riff, I think, and off we go. And then on top of it, the other thing is the lyric is you know, it's a simple sort of pop song in many ways, but the lyrics got a nice little sort of play on words with Invisible Touch, I think, actually. It's quite strong, that.
And now it seems I'm falling for her. She seems to have invisible touch.
When we were playing around with it, Mike had that ding, 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 ding. It reminded me of the Sheila E. thing, and so I started to sing something which I remembered as being something like this Sheila E. thing, because I liked it. The little idea that you hear and you take it and you think, I would have done this with that idea, you know. In the lyrics, I still joke about these lyrics to my son when we talk about people that we know, either have had relationships with or, you know, close relatives. People that, like, you know, they have the invisible touch that, I'm not quite sure, but whatever it is they do, you can't get them out of your mind, you know. In the live lyric of the song that I sing is like, though she will fuck up your life, you'll love her just the same, you know. It's kind of one of those things, and I actually, I like that lyric, because for me it's kind of, you know, been part of my life, I suppose. She seems to have an invisible touch. She reaches in and grabs right hold of your heart, you know, and tears it out, but you still go back for more, that kind of thing. So I feel quite close to that song.
She seems to have an invisible touch.
It certainly took us to a different kind of level, and I always thought at the time, and I remember we were doing this because we did Invisible Touch, the album came out, and it was #1 and everything, and then we came about a year later, we did the Wembley Stadium, four nights at Wembley Stadium, and the album went back up, actually at #2, I think, again, and it had been in the top 10, I think, the whole year. It was just extraordinary, really, and, you know, I did think when we did those shows at Wembley Stadium, I thought, it will never be bigger than this. This is it. You know, we've had an album that's been number one everywhere, and you know, we're selling out this shows 4 times and everything. And it was a great feeling. I just thought it was, you know, I'll enjoy it. I think because I thought it might not last. It lasted longer than I thought it was going to actually.
I think we probably all felt that it was a single, or the you know, the representative, the flagship of the record a bit. But this, it was number one in America, the first number one album and single in America. It was a very big record for us.
Tonight, I think is one of our sort of a prime example of that phase of writing where Phil would start with this great little sort of loop thing, you know, on a drum machine with that echo sound on it. So when the song started, before we even played a note, myself or Tony, you've got this atmosphere, like sort of setting the stage, and then Tony plays some chords and off we go, I think. And that's a very strong song, I think. And I think Tonight actually also is very unique. Nothing else we've done quite like it. There are certain songs you can liken to other songs before, but Tonight, I think is got the sound that's very original.
It's kind of still one of those journey songs. It went through different changes, and you know, it was outside the you know, kind of the format of singles. We were just writing how we felt like at the time, and we weren't trying to have hit singles. We weren't trying to be commercial. I just think that's the way it just happened to have turned out on that record.
I'm gonna make it right tonight.
Obviously, we edited it down as a single, and it was a big hit in the States, particularly, and it was a hit in England, I think, too, actually. But it's obviously, it's, you know, the extended version has quite a long middle eight. It's more like a traditional Genesis song, goes through lots of changes, and there's this sort of very ethereal kind of middle part, which, you know, is a very nice piece of music actually. But it's obviously didn't make it onto the single. But it's, you know, I guess I can't put my finger on what it is really. I mean, obviously Phil had got him, he'd become established at more as a singles act. That opened a few doors for us in terms of radio, prepared to sort of, you know, listen to it, I suppose. But I think the songs were there anyhow, you know, song like Invisible Touch or Land of Confusion, they're hit songs, I think, by anybody.
At this time, on this album, I think, yeah, I got very conscious of what was going on, actually, was that the public perception of us was because MTV was in full swing now, we were having hit singles and videos are doing well. I think the profile you get with a hit single was so huge, it dwarfed everything else. So I think people forget there were long songs on this album, like Domino. I mean, I think there's always this thing about, you know, you're a progressive band with the long songs and then you ended up doing the shorter songs. We didn't really ever stop doing the longer songs. They were just dwarfed, perception-wise, by the power of television, really. And funny enough, when you see us live, that balance is so different. I mean, I think when you see us live, the long songs are probably as big a part of the audience's enjoyment as the short songs. And the balance is doing very much half and half. So I think in a way, songs like Domino get rather forgotten until we go on stage.
Well, now you never did see such a terrible thing as you seen last night on the TV. Maybe if we're lucky, they will show it again. Such a terrible thing to see. Oh.
Well, to me, it is a very important track, Domino. I mean, you know, it's sort of, I suppose, it's, I'm sure they will say it's kind of more me, perhaps, than the others in a way. The lyrics mine, and I was trying to get across sort of a political kind of message, and it's sort of, you know, about how politicians are a bit like what people are like nowadays, I think, in a way. But politicians don't sort of sometimes, I think through what it is they've started off. You know, they do something, and then the fact that all these people are going to be, you know, people's husbands are going to be killed, and all the unexpected consequences that occur when you start something off, you know. People tend to think very sort of blinkered about a thing. They think we've got to get rid of this guy, got to do that, and of course everything else happens. And that's what the song was all about, really. And it was a nice, big, long song, gave you an opportunity to have a bit of fun, both lyrically and musically. And also, the end section is very strong, the bit, it's got a very strong guitar riff, and it's worked, you know, it's a classic stage song ever since, I think. It's one of the, in a funny way, it's almost, from a stage point of view, it's one of the best songs off the album, just because it gives you more room to breathe. You know, the longer songs tend to work better on stage, I think.
I thought it's time, whatever age I was on, I can't remember, I thought it was time for a protest song. But the time was right, after all these years. But done in a fairly subtle way, you know. Actually, I remember, this is the last lyric to be finished, I think. And I was behind schedule and late as usual. I think he'd sung all the other songs, actually, and I hadn't finished it. And we were, you know, Phil works at a great tempo in the studio, which is great. He pushes it along, you know. And I remember I was actually in bed with a horrendous sort of flu thing at home, so I started delirious. And he came round and sort of sat on the bedroom, I think. This is how I remember it, I'm sure. And I gave him the lyric, thinking, I don't know if it's any good. I was a bit sort of, you know, a fever and a temperature, thinking, I think it's all right, you know what I mean? And then he sang it. I wasn't there at the time, I don't think. He sang the first version of it. It really kind of worked.
Well, Land of Confusion was a lyric that Mike wrote. Yes, it was a sort of, obviously it's got a much more straightforward political message, I think, really, and being a more instant song and a more of a hit, it's probably had slightly more effect. And it was, the video obviously was great fun to do for that, you know. I mean, it's the best video we ever did, far and away, because we're not in it. It's as simple as that.
Spitting Image, of course, was very, very popular. They'd done me on a couple of episodes, taking the mickey out of me, and I was always very flattered by that. And I guess Jim Ukich and Paul had seen those and said, why don't we ask, you know, see if Spitting Image would do a video, which was, you know, for our point of view, was quite good, you know, good idea, because we didn't particularly like the idea of being in our own videos. It was like a, you know, I mean, our attention span was pretty short.
Too many men, there's too many people making too many problems, and not much love to go round. Can't you see this is a land of confusion?
There was lots of great moments in the video, I think. It was, and you know, just the little moment of the hands, I think, which happens in the middle of the video. So these are the hands we're given, bit, which is just quite touching and just sort of, I think it was a good combination, really, and it produced, it actually won a Grammy, which is the only Grammy that Genesis have ever come anywhere near. So it was nice.
This is the world we live in, and these are the names we give her. Stand up and let's start showing just where our lives are going to.
It's one of those one-note sambas, you know, like kind of one of Mike's riffs. He wrote the lyrics for it as well. Yeah, it turned out to be a great stage tune, actually.
Need I say that emotions is something we don't share? I don't want to be sitting here trying to deceive you.
I will often, on some songs, like Throw It All Away, will start with a phrase, a fill, a sound, the sound of the words. I'm sure on Throw It All Away, quite a lot of the stuff that I used, little phrases were in there. I'm sure Throw It All Away was in there. And I took it, and then, so in a way, I enjoyed being more sympathetic towards the sounds and vowels of the words that Phil naturally sang. But it all works, it's all important we do all of it, but that was more my sort of role, I think, actually. And I'm sure quite a lot of it, just that the phrasing came from what he sang.
The Brazilian was, you know, one of those sort of things where we just started to fool around. Again, this was like with the Simmons, you know, finding out what kind of different odd sounds you could get programmed into one kit. You know, obviously a drum kit's a drum kit, but this was like, you know, you had these different kind of sound. And Tony, you know, I remember sort of just mucking about and getting a pattern, and Tony would start playing. It started to get moulded into an instrumental song, you know, as time went on, but it just started off as a bit of a jam thing.
In the rehearsal room, I'd often just switch on the machine, you know, the emulator, and just record whatever's happening in the room. And Mike was just playing along, and Phil was doing something, and I recorded it. And this thing was there, and I slowed it down or something, or we combined a couple of different notes to get an effect. Because what they played on their own wasn't very interesting, I promise you. Put it together, and it just produced this thing, and I looped it, and I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. And then Phil started playing along with it. and it developed into a song that I think was into a piece. Just and the whole thing was quite quirky. So I just sort of played a rather. One reviewer described it as the cheesiest synthesizer sound of all time. I think and that was all sort of part of it for me. It was just kind of like a bit strange, and I quite like things like that. There were two, because there was another instrumental we did on this recording, which was "Do the Neurotic," which is obviously on the extra CD for this lot. And the two, it was a question of which do we use. "Do the Neurotic" was a much more traditional Genesis piece, more like Los Endos, lots of things happening, and musically a very interesting thing. Or the Brazilian, which is a much more quirky piece. And in the end, the vote went for the Brazilian, which I think we all felt at the time was perhaps the right thing.
I remember thinking the album cover was a bit dodgy, actually. I wasn't convinced by it. I'm still not really. I mean, the hand works okay with the title Visible Touch in the hand, just about gets away with it. But looking back, it's not a great album cover.
I always like the idea of the invisible touch, although obviously in the thing it's all about a girl, But the invisible touch is also quite a nice way to describe music, And so you've got this hand at the front which is coming out to touch you. I thought that was quite an effective thing. The resultant effect I don't think is particularly beautiful, but it's quite distinctive, And you saw it in the shops. You say, oh yeah, they got it. Oh, it's there, So instantly recognisable. And again, it works pretty well in CD format because it's just small and it kind of is distinctive. So it's one of those examples where it's a piece of graphic art without really being particularly beautiful.
When you see that image each side of the stage in these stadiums, it's very strong. You kind of, well, the invisible touch to it, right? It's kind of one of those sort of things that I can't remember who did the cover. I must admit, it was one of those things where, we had the hand, obviously because of invisible touch, and there was various ideas around it. And I think we were just trying to be a little bit, trying to be less pastoral. We were trying to sort of pull people along with what we thought was slightly different kind of Genesis.
When we came into this business back in 1969 or something, there was we did Genesis Revelation. It was we were with Jonathan King. We were trying to do hit singles. That's what we were trying to do. We just tried to write hits, and no one would do them, and we didn't appear to be that good at doing it. And then I think we were sort of shown the way by groups at the time, like the King Crimsons and Family and Fairport Convention, of another way of approaching music a little bit, and that's why we got into the progressive thing. And we found that we were kind of able to do things in that area that no one else was doing, whereas in the pop area, we weren't so original. By the time we got to this stage, I think we just felt we'd kind of almost gone as far as we could in certain directions of going into deep progressive music and extended solos and all the rest of it. And the idea of trying to craft songs a little bit more was quite appealing. So that's what ended up on this album.
Each one of those songs, like Atlantic Confusion, In Too Deep, Tonight, Invisible Touch, Throwing It All Away, they were all kind of either top 5, top 10 singles in the States. And I think that was probably that 85-86 tour as well we did with that. That was the first stadium tour. I mean, that opened up a whole... That was probably our peak in America to some extent. We Can't Dance may have just kept up there with it, but certainly from a record point of view, that was our biggest, probably the biggest wave, that album.
It's a good blend, I think. I mean, I think it's I was pretty excited when we finished this album. I thought this is really good, and I liked it because it was both. I still thought it was musically a very interesting album, and yet it was also obviously had a wide appeal.